Hi, I'm Yaakov Katz, and welcome to another episode of the Jewish People's Podcast by JPPI and our special ongoing coverage of what's happening in Israel's battle and war against Iran and attempts to eliminate, destroy, set back, delay, whatever term you want to use, of its nuclear program. Today, I'm really privileged to be joined by someone who I've known for a long time, Sima Shine. Sima was for many years in Israel's Mossad. Her final role there was head of its research and intelligence division. Sima then served for a period of time in the National Security Council, was the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Strategic Affairs, where she was actually the person who was responsible for the Iranian files. So if there's anyone who's really an expert in Israel on what's happening in Iran, it is Sima. And just thank you so much for finding the time to sit with us. I want to start with just a general question. I do want to kind of for you to try to take us into what's happening in Iran, because I think that's often something that's missed. But before that, how do you view so far what Israel has achieved, where Iran is, and how this operation is going on?
So let's start with the good news, and that's what Israel has achieved. No question that Israel has. I'm trying to find a word to say what a surprise was the beginning of the war and everything that Israel has done in Iran. I think it wouldn't be. I wouldn't exaggerate by saying that you see it in movies in Hollywood and not in real life. And this is something that is really, on one hand, very surprising. On the other hand, you see the result of many, many years of preparation. Iran was always the enemy of Israel, the threat of Israel, and what we see now is the accumulation of many years of a lot of um, effort, initiative, and really, how should I find a good word to describe it? So what Israel has put on the table is one, the nuclear project, two, ballistic missiles, and three, terror. Terror probably usually is related to the proxies. So Israel has put for the last years has been repeating and saying that Israel will not allow Iran to get a nuclear bomb. So it's not only presidents of the US that have been said it, it's also the Israeli government and the prime minister. And I think what we see today is the accumulation of effort that have been prepared for years if Iran will decide to break out. Now, the question that I am asked by everyone is, what were the triggers for this timing? And I want to say that it is not always, it's not one trigger, it's a combination of several. But the most important one is the fact that during the last year, we have been hearing more and more voices in Iran saying we should go for nuclear, we should change our nuclear policy, and we should go for a nuclear deterrence. Because of the results of the war of the last year, that actually Iran doesn't have any more proxies that can support and deter Israel. So that was on the public side, on the declaration side. But simultaneous to that, we saw small steps of the groups of scientists working on weaponization, not breaking out to a device, but doing small steps that could improve Iran's position once there is a decision to break out.
And be able to move faster, basically.
Faster and in a shorter time, of course. And I think, so that was the first and most important trigger. The other one is the issue of the ballistic missiles. And now that we see what harm these ballistic missiles are doing, we can understand how important it is. Iran was not only constructing these ballistic missiles, but we saw a huge effort on Iran to reach big numbers of ballistic missiles in a short time. And I think this is something that together with the delivery system, together with the issue of the nuclear, was something that was a trigger from Israel's point of view. And of course, one has to add to that also the window of opportunity, the situation in the region, but all these are only supporting elements and are not the main element.
Sima, how do you assess, though, the damage that so far has been done to the nuclear facility? So we know about Natanz that's been hit. We know about Parchin. We know about Isfahan, some strikes there. Iraq, the heavy water, non-active reactor hit last night. Some of the other smaller facilities. Fordow, of course, is its own little category right now. But so far, what has been attacked, have we caused enough damage to set them back?
I think we have caused not enough, but we have caused damage, no question. Isfahan is very interesting because it's not only a conversion site, it's also conversion from natural uranium to UF6 gas, but also to uranium, metal uranium, which is a very important component in the way to a nuclear device. So Isfahan has been hurt dramatically. I don't know to say completely, but Natanz, we have two things. One is the upper above the ground facility that was there that was completely ruined, and there they have been enriching. It's a small one. They've been enriching to 60%. But the big plant of a centrifuge is under the ground. It's a huge one. It's the biggest one. And there we know that Israel has heard the electronics, the energy system, and that probably has broken some portion of the centrifuge. We don't know the numbers, and I heard many numbers. I don't know to say that.
But we have heard from the IAEA that damage has been done to the centrifuges.
Exactly, but we don't know to how many.
Is Fordow, in your opinion, crucial, has to be taken out, has to be damaged for this to be considered a success? Or is it possible that Israel, and if Trump does not get involved, Fordow doesn't get touched, but we call it a win? Is that possible even without Fordow?
I don't think so. I think it will be a catastrophic situation, and I'll tell you why. Because Fordow was from the beginning planned to be a secret site for enrichment to weaponization. They are already enriching to 60% there. They have 3,000 centrifuges, so they can in no time have enough material. So that's a huge problem if we don't touch Fordow. And the second thing that I want to mention is that as far as I know, we didn't touch the material. There is a lot of material spread in different places in Iran. We don't know. I don't know if we know where it is, but we didn't touch it as far as I know. And we don't know for the last 4 years.
By material, I just want to sharpen. You mean the gas?
Fissile material.
Right.
Fissile material.
The fissionable
enriched
material.
Uranium. Enriched uranium to 60 to 20 to 5%. Now, the other thing is that in the last 4 years, there is no inspection of the IAEA on a production of centrifuge and of the advanced one. So Iran could, during this time, take some portion of the centrifuge and put them somewhere else. And now when they have the material and the centrifuge, they have the way to a weapon. And no question that if the war is finished, after everything they have suffered, and we didn't mention all the leaders of the security establishment, all the scientists, and many other things, after that, they will rush to a bomb.
That is, you have no doubt that that's what they'll try to do.
No doubt.
So, which leads then to the understanding that even if Fordow is attacked, they have the ability to rebuild because it's all local, domestic, technical knowledge, and they know how to do it. How do we stop them from rebuilding? What mechanism is needed in place to prevent that reconstruction?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think two things to say about it. First of all, I do hope that this war is being stopped and finished with a political agreement.
Mm-hmm.
That is very, very important, not because of both sides were fatigued and they stopped killing each other, but it should be finished with an agreement, and this agreement should put very strict inspection on Iran. I would prefer American involvement in this. There are many things that should be done in order to make sure that Iran doesn't rush to a nuclear device. And even now, as we are speaking, there are those voices in the parliament, in the Iranian Majlis, talking about the need to leave the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and go for a bomb. So this is not something that we invent. It's something very, very spoken in Iran.
Mm-hmm. What is happening in Iran? Give us a feeling of, you mentioned the Majlis, you mentioned the voices in the parliament. We've seen the images of people fleeing this, like cities like Tehran, which are coming under attack from Israel. This is a massive country, 90, 80 something million people, 15 times. People think it's like Israel against a country of similar size. We're tiny. They're huge. They're 15, 20 times our land size,
Yeah.
right? The people, they're 8 times our people. I mean, the fact that we've been able to achieve what we've achieved is remarkable in of itself, as you said. But what are we seeing what's the sentiment on the street there?
Well, that's a very interesting issue. As you know, the Prime Minister has encouraged the people to get out against the regime, etc. I think there are, of course, we know for years that, and we see it also in demonstrations in the street, that there is a big portion of the population that doesn't like the regime and hates the regime and wants a change of regime. That doesn't mean that they want to be bombed by Israel. So we have to separate. There are those, I'm sure, that are very much glad to see the regime suffering and are hoping that something will happen. But I think there are those also that even if they hate the regime, they don't want to be humiliated and they don't want to be bombed. And I think this is a huge problem. We don't know how things will develop, but I question whether the possibility of an attack from outside that will make it a regime change.
When you hear the voices in Israel, and we saw an example earlier today, we're talking on Thursday, June 19th, when Defense Minister Israel Katz came out with a statement saying, the Prime Minister and I have instructed the IDF to target targets that will destabilize or undermine the regime. That does seem what's called in English a mission creep, right? Where you start with one mission, the nuclear program, and suddenly you see that's going well. You say, 1 second, I can actually maybe take down the Ayatollahs. I mean, is that overreaching for Israel?
It's not only overreaching, it's hubris, and I think it makes a lot of damage to the Israeli position in the world. We started the war with the nuclear issue. Everyone, even Macron and others, have been saying Israel has the legitimacy to defend itself. And we got the support from everyone. Talking the way the defense minister is talking is harming Israel's interests outside Israel and is harming our position in Iran. And I really ask myself, what brought him to talk like that? And also raising the issue of killing Khamenei. I saw a declaration coming from the very important Ayatollah in Iraq that doesn't support the system in Iran, Sistani, but he's saying, don't dare killing the supreme leader that is so important. And I think Israel is completely should stay completely on the first and foremost issue of the nuclear. And that would bring also to bring demands to Iran on the nuclear issue. If you go for a regime change, who will support us?
Well, let me ask you another question though, and then I will let you go. Is who could even, let's say, somehow there was a regime change. Somehow the Ayatollah was either killed or he decided to retire. He wants to retire to Doha in the villa next to Khalid Mashal and live out the rest of his life. I don't know who would replace him. I mean, people tend to think that it's the Shah's son who lives off in the United States, but obviously maybe I doubt it. I mean, who's on the ground in Iran that you see lining up as potential successors, and would they be better?
So first of all, if it depends on the leader, he's not going anywhere and he's not surrendering to Trump, calling him to surrender.
Right.
And that shows me that people that are preparing Trump or telling him, or somebody, perhaps nobody prepares him, doesn't understand the Iranians, don't understand anything about Iran. You don't use these words if you want to bring them to the table to negotiate. You use different language and different methods, and I think we underestimate the resistance of Khamenei and of the people around him. And this is I would say something that is so. We saw it in the war with Iraq. They had 8 years of war. It was a terrible war for Iran. They could finish it after a year. No, they stick to resistance and continued until they couldn't anymore. So I really think we should be focused. Now, the question, they completely correct. Who will replace him? Let's assume that he disappears somehow. First of all, maybe that the IRGC will take the reign and will be even worse than what we see today.
Right.
There are those who think that nothing will be there and it will be kind of not a civil war, but a kind of something like that. And there are those, I can tell you, that I'm here outside of Iran, Iranians that are outside of and are against the regime, but they think that this is what Israel wants, to have Libya, a second Libya or something like that.
And that would be even a greater disaster, potentially. I mean,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
country falling apart into civil war, splintered into different militias, that's not necessarily a good outcome either.
Exactly. And therefore, I think we should concentrate on one important issue, that's the nuclear and the ballistic missile, the delivery system, and that's all. I think it's terrible to the interest of Israel to talk about a regime change. And I think it also does discourage people in the US, because first of all, they don't want to be involved in the war and the base of Trump and everything. But to talk about a regime change is even worse than just going and
Because it brings back Iraq, Afghanistan. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, very
everything,
interesting point. Yeah.
everything.
Well, Sima Shine from the Institute of National Security Studies, former head of research and intelligence at the Mossad, thank you so much for joining us. And to all
Thank
our
you.
listeners, thank you for being with us this week. And we will continue into next week with coverage of Iran and Israel's war.